back to 2012, when you didn't have 500,000 looters, you weren't, the fastest growing company on the planet according to Inc. But I think for the benefit of our whole audience, I think it'd be really cool if you could take us back to 2012 and just share with us a little bit why LootCrate started.
It was actually, I met my co-founder completely on a whim. It was at an LA hackathon where entrepreneurs and people who would want to become entrepreneurs, who are developers and marketers, and in the LA tech space, come together to work on a team over a 54-hour period of time.
54?
54 hours.
Usually they're only 24. You guys are heroic.
There was a lot of free coffee, so that helped out a lot.
Good.
And at the end, you had to present to some judges, and they were VCs and people who were prominent in the space. And we didn't win first, second, or even third, but we were the only company that at the end of it was able to be on stage and say, we already have paying subscribers. And while we respect the ideas that came out of that weekend, we had actually managed to convince a customer base that the idea that we had was something that would be worth taking a chance on. And I met Chris that day, and 30 days later, we were kind of like, we really need to ship a box out. We promised, because I used every single favor I had in my Rolodex of being born and living in LA, like every influencer, every YouTuber, anything, just being like, you have to get the word out there. And 30 days later, it was riding my bike around the toy district of downtown LA and finding little tchotchkes from the old stores used to sell video games. Now they have a bunch of little toys and stuff.
I remember it.
And so we did that, and from those days of hand stamping the boxes and being on folding tables, 3 years later, we were fortunate enough, thanks to the reception of our community and what we had built, to be Inc.'s #1 fastest growing private company in America.
Okay, come on, this ranks out in applause. Seriously. Seriously, 3 years. And you didn't win. I think there's a beautiful story in that.
Well, we didn't win the original competition, no. But we feel very happy that the experience that we created for our looters and for those founding members was able to help us go from that 0 to $100 million in revenue without ever taking any kind of outside investment, without having to incur any kind of debt. We just kept reinvesting back into the company and building the experience the entire time. So.
I think we have some looters in here, or some serious respecters. So what are some of the principles? Because you're growing so rapidly, but you are also so central to what being a looter and a fan really is about. But what are some of the values that were important that you started at that point and are still holding tight today?
That's a pretty loaded question, but I'll go over them a little bit.
Yeah.
This being our 5-year anniversary, there were still some things that we, at that inception, not today, but this year, that at our inception, we still use today, which is these kind of 4 brand principles, which are we're fans first, which means that we have over 40 engineers that are part of our data sciences and technology team. We have customer insights and research teams. We have brand managers, project managers, about 250 people that it takes to move the 23 different subscription lines that we have and make them what they are. And all of them are fans of one way or another. And we really are focusing on being true to what goes into the box and the experiences that we create, and not compromising based off of anything other than creating a really amazing experience for that end user. You can trust us, which is all about being thoughtful and transparent and truthful in the communications that we have, and doing everything we can to be as trustworthy in that regard. We love you, which comes from when we first originally set up an email address, which was just for the company. I thought we love you at lootcrate.com would be a good email address, because how could you be upset at a company that you have to type in "we love you" there? So that was.
Oh, that's kind of tricky.
I was like,
that's a little tricky.
I was like, instead of support or help me or yikes or something like that, I was like, how about "we love you"? But it really isn't about anything more than just an expression of finding ways to build that kind of care and attention into the products that we do.
I want to jump on your fans first component for a moment. Is there a business decision that you had to make that was a really hard decision to make, and maybe if you weren't a fan first and that wasn't such a core value of yours, you might have made a different decision.
Well, we're known partially for the bespoke nature of all the individual corrugate that we use. So we don't have a set size or range of sizes. The corrugate itself becomes part of the experience. They transform into different things. They can be manipulated. And it was interesting that we actually had an opportunity come up of something that we didn't really feel wasn't a brand that was fan-centric, didn't really treat the IP in a way that we felt was core to our values. And we actually turned down a fairly lucrative opportunity to integrate with the box in that sense, because we knew that we couldn't in good conscience. How can we get excited when we're looking at the mood boards and talking about stuff, and every time being like, and then there's that thing that we did because, it's a paid kind of opportunity. It sounded like a smart idea, yeah. Yeah, we want to be really excited and really passionate about all the different things that we do. And what ended up happening actually is we designed an alternative design for that box, and Paramount liked it so much that we actually turned it into a paid opportunity, but we did it from creating what we wanted the box to be first, and then one of our brand partners came in and saw it and said, hey, can we work with you on this and make it a little bit more? And then it ended up being following the rule of trying to go towards that fan-centric mentality paid off in that regard.
So that's a cool aspect of how you put fans first. Another one is, I'm just thinking what you were just saying about your boxes. And we just got your latest box, and we're like, oh, it's going to be a punch out, and you're going to kind of build something different.
That was a hard one.
Was it? Why?
There was a team of people who creates that element, and the punch outs, I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm not. Everyone was like, oh, you really need to make it, show that you can do it. I was like, it's pretty complex. Well, thankfully we have great partners who work with us, and if we tell them hey, we really want it to be able to transform into a desk because we're doing an anime theme that month that's all about celebrating school and that genre of anime, and we want it to look like a desk. We don't want it to just be a print. We want pieces to come out and everything. That one was pretty complex. That was with Activision around Destiny. So you can actually build a replica of what's called a ghost, which is a companion character from the series.
Very cool. But it was hard, but I love what you just said about that. Because also, everybody's probably thinking about, okay, how do we standardize costs? How do we drive down? You guys aren't doing that because that's so important to you guys.
No, the investment that we're making, LootCrate, with the same year that we won the fastest growing private company in America, we also won Deloitte's fastest growing tech company. And it's because of that investment in the technology, and it might sound a little dry and not as experiential, it's technology. But we now know, as everybody in this room can attest, that everything that we do now has a back end of technology. So our investment in content and the way that we produce it, how we present it through the boxes and through the website, as well as we have this thing called the Secret Order of Keys, which is kind of this ARG.
Do you want everybody to know about this?
Yeah, it's public.
Okay.
You can opt into it.
Okay.
We worked with a great partner called 42 Entertainment, who's done things for Warner Brothers and other companies, and they created this experience that goes from box to box, and you actually have to utilize the items within the box to be able to solve these puzzles and then get additional loot out of it. And so we have families who not only talk to us about coming together, and it's the one thing that brings everybody together at a month around the table, and they all exchange.
Really?
But now they can actually take those items, and it's kind of like an escape room. You have to put in little codes, and each one leads to the next and everything. And that kind of investment is the type of thing that we're willing to make in order to keep the service fresh and interesting and have people look at it more of a membership into an experience than a pure transactional kind of, I'm getting a box of stuff.
So I clearly have no idea on the answer that I'm going to ask, because I'm just curious. So you mentioned about how families come around the table. And by the way, kudos for that, because, and I love technology, but people coming around the table to do something.
It's one of the things that we really love about this space and why I admire everybody else in this room who's focused on creating physical manifestations of things that elicit, emotion. Because there is something tangible about it, whether it be a vinyl record subscription, beauty subscription, everything. There's something about that experience that we really love, and we got to see it from packing the back of trucks to having hundreds of thousands of square feet of warehouse space and seeing how it grows, and we even with the complications that come with that. I had no idea what OSHA was or where do you even get a forklift? Like, can you just go and buy a forklift on Craigslist? Like, we didn't know, so.
But now you're making me feel, I want to make sure you don't trip off the stage here, okay?
No.
Because all of a sudden
good.
now I'm thinking OSHA. But I was curious, back to this very physical manifestation of something, and then people building things, which also I think is great for people to be building things. But how about, have you guys done anything in terms of then driving that local community? So you guys are, reaching out nationally. Have you seen like local groups forming even beyond the family space? Or,
We
I'm
currently,
curious, that community part.
yeah, we currently deliver to 675,000 subscribers a month in 34 different countries, and that's created sub-communities and pockets of groups of people that are local who will get together and do unboxings together. Like the same way that friends would all wait until their boxes came and then unbox together. We're seeing that on kind of a larger scale, like Facebook groups that come up and everything. It's great to see that reaction, even positive or negative, because it's the best way to get. And I think that's also a benefit of this business and this space is to be able to get real reactions immediately across a wide range of people of how they feel about the product, so you can constantly improve it.
Okay, so I'm curious then how you filter through that to find, because there's the things that, just like any kind of bell curve, there's those kind of extraneous pieces at the end. I love it, I hate it, right? But how do you kind of
have to be careful
that?
as you get bigger and bigger, because it's like, wow, the hate is really getting huge. It's like
The
hundreds and
percentage.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people can hate what we did in every single item that month, and it is still a small percentage, and we want to please everybody, and we're going to take that feedback and that criticism and do what we can to make the service as best for everybody. But it was tough for a while, because it was just like, wow, like,
Where'd the love go?
yeah, like, well, the love was always there. It was just like, wow, like there's this growing, are we not doing it? A lot of the people that we've hired some of the best folks out there, people from Mattel, from eHarmony, from TrueCar, people that have come from a lot of different places, and it's a lot of data sciences. So we have, we don't just have like a guy who's LootCrate data science. Like we have a team of data scientists. We have a customer insights and research team that runs something called the Lab, which is the Looter Advisory Bureau. So what we've done is we've created a panel of our subscribers and our members across different things like anime, gaming, and some of the other like sports that we're doing. And then they opt in to be able to see things early. It's similar to the insider programs and some things that people are doing here. But we have people who have done human-centered design and who come from everything from the world of politics and really interesting kind of psychographic and demographic backgrounds, and we have those teams in-house doing that work.
One thing I want to do, Matthew, is I'm sure the audience here has a number of questions you'd like to ask, so I'm just going to make sure that people start getting those questions ready. Go ahead and send them through the the 22333 app, and if you have any, then we'll start seeing them. Eventually, we'll start seeing them on the screen up here. Okay? But I just kind of want to give everybody a heads up, or we will also have mics, so that if you do have a question, make sure you raise your hand. We have about 20 more minutes to go, so I want to make sure that we get some questions from the audience as well. Okay, so what I'm curious about then is, as you look at some of the data, like, can you take us through a specific data story that would really help us? Like, we were seeing this, how we thought through it, because a lot of people talk about data, but data story.
Dave Morris is going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow when he talks about the data and logistics and operations of LootCrate. But to touch on it briefly, there was a misconception that the people that we were reaching would not be interested in a new business offering we were doing, which was SportsCrate, which is a relationship that we have with Major League Baseball and the Players Association, where we've taken 10 of the Major League Baseball teams and we created individual subscription lines for each one. So there's the Dodger crate, there's
the Tigers.
There's I believe there's
Tigers.
Yeah, there's Tigers.
What do you mean you believe?
There's one. There's Tigers.
Yeah, I know there is.
I remember.
Come on.
Yeah.
We know it.
And we manufacture all those items. That's a whole other conversation, like where we do tooling and figural stuff. But there was a misconception that our core audience, that it wouldn't be really worth even promoting much to them, because there might be a risk of, hey, you guys are kind of straying too far from your core values. Have we built up the brand enough that people would understand that fandom is fandom, and we're doing this just to offer to fans like them, just in a different genre? Or that they just wouldn't be fans at all of it. And through the lab and through some of our research and polling and surveys and the things that we normally do, we were able to come up with that. We have something called a PVI, which is a perceived value index, and it's an index score that we give to each individual item, as well as the items as a whole as an experience. Because you have to remember, every month we're working with licensed partners like Marvel, Disney, Nintendo, Capcom, across everything, and hitting the reset button every month with a whole new theme, a whole new tone and personality, just for a core and DX, and then all the other subscription boxes we have. And so it gets really complex, but we make sure that after each one, we are surveying, we are polling, we're getting the information that we need.
Okay, wonderful. So now I'm kind of curious, kind of switching gears a little bit. Let's see. So your mission statement is to unite and inspire the world through the shared celebration of fandom. So to me, for what it's worth, your sports crate makes absolute sense. I'm curious, where does that go? Where's the reaches of fans? Is there a place where fans stop?
Music, beauty, we're exploring a number of different opportunities. Right now, it's been a fast 5 years, and LootCrate has been like, the geek and gaming box.
Right.
And over the rebranding, and just, it's also tough. I mean, again, everybody in this room knows what it's like to have to deal with it's a constant revolving door. Like the past, it's crazy to keep on track, and we definitely could have done better with really kind of expressing how we're growing, how we're morphing the company over time, while also like making sure things ship and make sure licensing and,
Right.
and vendor relationships and everything. But yeah, I think we're already exploring things like music and beauty. We look at LootCrate as a platform for fans to be able to have really amazing experiences around the brands that they love. And the reason why we have relationships where we're not just putting a Rick and Morty licensed item in the box and saying, we curated this, isn't it amazing? Oh, it has a new color deco, isn't that cool? And we're actually working with Justin Roiland and Dan, the co-creators, and going from a complete sketch and illustration of something that's never existed before, and then it being a licensed item that's in the box, and doing that across a ton of different IPs. The reason why the companies love working with us is they know that we're building something truly for the fans. We aren't like, hey, Rick and Morty's hot, let's really get on that train, and what's the cheapest figure we can do, what's the small, obviously we have margin targets and we have things that we need to do, but we will turn things down if we don't feel like it's going to be something that is really going to elicit an amazing response from the fan of that particular franchise.
Okay, so the questions are rolling in. We can see them. And again, I'll say the same thing that I shared when
These are good questions too.
Well, there you go. Well, you know what? While I give my little dissertation, you pick which one you want to go for first, okay?
Okay.
So just like we did with Lisa Sugar, if we don't get to all of your questions today, we will make a point of working with Matthew and answering the questions and then sharing them through Summit and SUBTA as well. So please send all of your questions in. And let's go. So, this is like the Rolodex,
Sure.
okay? What do I need to start with?
Well, I'll be as brief as possible too, so we can get through as many.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you wish LootCrate would have done in year one? I think, given the opportunity, we probably would have brought in some more experienced fulfillment and operation folks early on. Chris and I didn't really have a sense for how quickly things were going, and I think at one point we're like, and granted, back then, things were 100% on time and everything was lower scale, but we would do something like we wanted to get these pixelated sunglasses, and we went through the whole process, and it goes to the Port of LA, it's coming in, and then we realize, oh, sunglasses have UV protection. They're technically a medical device, and so we had to become a medical device importer to do it. There was just some things that we had to stumble and learn early on.
Right.
And I think subscription boxes weren't new when LootCrate came out, and obviously there were operations and logistics and fulfillment and people who specialize in all that kind of stuff. We probably should have brought some more experienced folks on early on.
Well, there's plenty of those people in the room for everybody. Okay, what about this one?
What is your policy for boxes that are marked delivered, but a customer says, oh, no, that's something else, sorry. How far in advance do you plan a theme for a box? Currently, it's easiest to talk about Core, which is our largest of the 675,000. That's planned out to February of next year, so we have a basic theme, Explore, and then we want to do a space exploration, okay, Destiny and Star Wars, but what else when you think about exploration? well, there's some up and coming, franchises, everything. So we plan out based off of that, go over all the core stuff, and kind of move backwards. So we want to be a year out.
Yeah, so has that changed over time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because probably before, like what was
What
your
are we
time
doing
frame?
next month? It's like, let's do this. Okay.
Okay,
That's
how many people have been there? Come on. Yeah, we've all
it's-
been there.
Now
I mean,
with
we're building
with-
it next
I mean,
week.
we didn't know about Chinese New Year. That was a new one early on. Yeah. It's like, wait, so a lot of people don't come back to the factories?
Well, let's talk about the not so fun part. Churn. How do you guys deal with churn?
We have a dedicated team, a retention team, and loyalty team, as well as a churn reduction, a director of retention.
Okay.
And it's a lot about offering the ability we offer a skip option. So if you hear the theme, you hear it's going to have Jessica Jones and Batman and Stranger Things, but you're not interested in those franchises, you can skip, become part of the system. We do cross sells and upsells. So if core is not interesting to you, maybe you want to look at gaming this month. So we really focus on keeping people within the ecosystem, and it's by building a community and a loyalty system that keeps people engaged and interested in being a part of your community, regardless of what it is you're putting in the box. That have an appreciation for what you're delivering to them, both inside the box and outside the box, that it can soften franchise or IP kind of fluctuations and emotion.
So do you guys do any kind of process management around life cycle? I mean,
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in terms of from your fan point, I mean, do people kind of grow through a stage and then they're moving to another, and you're developing these kind of?
Again, these are all
strategies?
super amazing topics that we can just do one thing
Yeah.
on, have a chart and look at all this.
I know, where's our
And this
whiteboard?
is how they go through the ecosystem, and this is what we found over shipping 15 million boxes. It's a complex question. Yes, we do have it mapped out. The life cycle of a looter is determined and analyzed based off of how they came into the ecosystem and where they go around and everything. And the goal is to keep them engaged in some way, which is why subscription boxes are a channel that we use currently, but we don't consider ourselves just a subscription box company. And we have other content and marketing initiatives and partnerships where it might not be as public, but we have other opportunities of those folks associating themselves with those partnerships and opportunities.
So
outside of
super healthy, because I think there's some people who are attracted into the subscription box business because it sounds kind of easy to get started, but there's a point where you really have to have that business model. At what point in your life since 2012 did all
very
of a
early
sudden-
on. Chris
Right.
Davis, my co-founder and our CEO, I think, for a guy in his I think he's 31 now, so he was in his late 20s when we started the company. It's just amazing. He has a great background in finance. He just understands that world and loves it so much. So we've been profitable and looking at things like forecasting and modeling everything out. And it's a big company now. It's got a whole C-suite of executives and a senior leadership team and everything, and a lot of really smart folks that we rely on to kind of do that kind of work.
Okay. I see some questions here around global. So what do you want to share with us? Maybe it could be something interesting that you're like, good heavens.
I don't know if
I'd
this is a
known.
funny story or not, but when we did start it, we based it off of Chargeify and ShipSite. We just hey, I don't think we could have done this business 5 years prior, just because of the maturity of some of the great sponsors who are in here, actually. The products, was just how are we going to charge? How are we going to ship? We forgot to turn something off. We wanted to just start with domestically. And I think while I was we'll call them looters, and hey, John S., you're amazing, building the Facebook page and everything from hour one of the company and trying to build what I do, which is that brand and that community aspect, someone forgot to uncheck something. And so our very first subscriber, Ava Chan, who's still a subscriber today, she's from Canada. And so we immediately opened up this whole can of worms of how are we going to ship globally? What are we going to do? And then if you're shipping to Canada, why can't you ship to X, Y, and Z country and everything? So just by a mistake, we had to very early on manage that. And luckily now, through multiple trips to around the world and working with some great partners, we've managed 34 countries is not a lot, but it's where we feel comfortable currently, and we want to continue to expand.
So Ava Chan was your very first looter, and
She's
you
amazing.
still,
She brought
really?
us cookies, a plate of cookies, homemade cookies to Comic-Con. She brought it on the plane, everything else like that, and brought it there and everything.
And what were the cookies? Were they shaped anything in particular, or just really good homemade
they were
cookies?
very good cookies.
And you know what? And that kind of, I think, there might be a stereotype that it's all guys, and yet your first, Ava, I assume, is a female.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
no, she's great. I mean, like I don't know the demographics off the top of my head, and obviously, as everybody knows, who's buying is sometimes hard. Who are they buying for? And so that's
Right.
why all the surveys and everything. But we have we have our apparel line, Lootwear, Firefly, and Wizarding World. So we're the official subscription box for J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World. And we have some other, Sanrio, we're the official box for Sanrio. And so those are a lot of, and so the mix is becoming more and more female. And then you can go on anywhere and just do #LootCrate. And sometimes because they're a little more comfortable in front of the camera and are used to sharing, it does look a little more female online, but
Yeah.
the mix is we're happy with that.
That's very cool. I'm curious, does the word looters, as you mentioned, the 35 countries, have you had any translation issues with that?
Not that I'm aware of. no.
Really?
Yeah.
So nothing like, when Chevrolet had the Nova, and
No, no.
Nova meant no-go, a real
No,
good
yeah,
name
no, I
for a
know,
car. Yeah, South America? So nothing with looters. Okay, great. Okay, let's pick another question here.
When your customers skip a month, they have to pay a small fee that month to keep their account active. No, and to be fair, launching skips was pretty quickly developed process that we may have, in retrospect, have come up with some things like maybe limiting the amount of skips per time period and everything. No, they remain active. And they get the same kind of email and drip marketing and all that kind of stuff, and they can still participate.
Okay.
Obviously, we do a lot of streaming on Twitch. We do YouTube content. We produce. We have a studio called LootCrate Studios where we have a full production team. They can still participate in that kind of stuff and get access to it. Do you offer all MLB teams for the Sports Crate? No, 10 right now that were picked working with Major League Baseball and the Players Association, but we will be expanding to all 30 teams, and then we'll also be doing NBA and NFL. So we'll be the official subscription box for the NFL and the official subscription box for the NBA.
So are you going to roll them out the same, where you do a limited number of the teams first?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
Doug Wadley, who's who's heading the Sports Crate division, is amazing. It's like he's a great. He's like he's got it all planned out exactly when the rollouts are forecasted, exactly profitability and everything. So
So are the Packers going to be a team?
I'm sure the Packers are going to be a team.
I know some people who would be very happy about that. I know I'm from Michigan, but what happens when you marry somebody from Wisconsin? Packers.
Is there anybody
yeah.
that wanted to ask a question that maybe didn't install the app or?
Yeah, anybody that has, we do have 2 mics in the room. So we'll still keep going through these, but make sure you holler at us. Great. Our gentleman from earlier. Yeah, if you want to stand up while we're getting the mic to you, you can probably go ahead and shout it out.
Okay.
Or we'll repeat it.
You mentioned some different things about the pricing model and electric manufacturing. Do you guys purchase the product yourselves in many cases, or is it a mix between sponsored product and stuff that you manufacture?
There is no sponsored product from the very first. We've only once taken product that we thought was cool, and it happened to go through an agency that was like, they'll also pay you like 25 cents per box to put it in, and that check came. That was cool early on. The boxes were still being hand stamped. We were still like folding them and everything, and putting the crinkly cut stuff in there. But no, there is no pay to be in there. We purchase and manufacture all the items that go in the box. And from a pricing perspective, we picked $13.37 as a price early on, just because we thought it was funny. It's kind of like a gamer kind of leet speak kind of thing of Elite 1337. There was no real and then we said, $6, and then plus shipping and handling to be $20. But we have different margin targets for each individual product line. Of the 23, we have a different mix based off of the type of products that are going to be included.
Speaking of money, when did you roughly hit profitability?
We were profitable when we were when we hit Inc. #1
Okay.
on 500. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, from day one, I mean, every month, I just remember working with Chris, and the first month we made a little money, and then the next month we made more, then made more, and made more, and then we were making and I remember when we made $1 million in the whole month, and then I remember when we made $10 million the whole month, and like those little celebrations. But we were now, obviously it's much more complex. I look at we have a board of directors, and I look at the OpEx and this and everything. I'm just like, okay, ARPU and LTV and EBITDA, and like, that's not really my core focus of the business. But obviously, I'm a large shareholder, so I'm interested in how all that stuff is doing. It varies from product to product now, based off of how much we're putting into marketing. You have to remember, we spend millions and millions of dollars on
it takes money to make money.
Influencers and our friends at Facebook and other partners.
Has there been any component of give back? We heard from Shivaka certainly about the conscious consumerism earlier. So how do you guys look at that?
Corporate social responsibility is really big for us, and we find different elements to, we don't follow a lot of best practices, I believe, when it comes to how you should be celebratory of those things, because it would help build awareness for these causes and everything. But through the years, we've had different. Chris's brother is diabetic, and so we've had different opportunities. We also, on the gaming side, have worked with like Operation Supply Drop, which does a lot of video game memorabilia and collectibles to troops who are deployed. And we also support things like Child's Play and a number of initiatives with our influencer partners. So we work with some of the top influencers who are creating content today, and we find opportunities to work with them to utilize, and some other partners like CAA and Sony and others who have their own initiatives, will support them. I think
that brings up a really good point, Matthew, because sometimes people do those, and it's all about the showy part and the marketing part, and I'm a marketer at heart as well, but it's about being true and authentic to how you run your own business and what's true to your fans, and doing those things that resonate. She really
spoke to. It was great to hear that element. I was really happy to, and we're definitely gonna go back and think about some ways that we could reduce waste, that we can do some good there.
Well, we'll be talking more about boxing tomorrow too. So,
did you raise a lot of money? How long to profitability? We raised, this is public, a Series A, and I don't know. It really depends on what you consider a lot of money. I mean, it was tens of millions of dollars, but it wasn't like $100 million. It wasn't 50. A lot of it was strategic. It was like Robert Downey Jr. Jr.'s Downey Ventures was a Time Incorporated.
So they were strategic partners.
Yeah. Sterling VC, which is who owns the Mets, the organization there, and then Upfront Ventures in LA. Like, so we definitely are in LA. We're really proud of that. We had the mayor come and speak and everything. Like, again, another topic we can go into about why LootCrate is in LA, because it's really expensive to be there. But we believe that like our access to the studios and the creative talent, as well as the great products and developers and technology in LA is really big. So that was led by an LA-based venture company called Upfront.
Okay, speaking of people, how did you decide when you needed to hire people to run a division? Was it reactive or proactive?
Because we're still so early in our company, I think we've had some challenges with really understanding what a team can handle before needing to have additional people put on there. We have a really amazing culture and people operations team in-house that are constantly doing things, making sure that people are comfortable with their workload, that they feel that they're appreciated, that they have a voice, and that they feel empowered to speak up if they feel that they're overworked. And so it's really just through open communication. I can say we've done both. With SportsCrate, we did make the determination to work with a partner called Wasserman, who specializes in the sports space. They represent the athletes. So they are doing some of our display advertising, our marketing, our PR and press, where we could have said, hey, why don't we just take our director of corporate communications and staff him up and get somebody.
But they could run faster, because you told us earlier, that was one of the things you learned, is hire people who actually know that
Chris
business.
and I, probably like a lot of people in this room, would feel like, you get that sense of like, I can do this is something I can take on, whether you feel that somebody else couldn't do it better than you, or you just feel you're close enough, or that the burden should be on you. I mean, we early on, we probably, as I said, with the logistics and operations, we probably should have scaled that back. Now we have project managers who come from amazing Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, who have come in and helped us look at how the operations are done and are very clear about what we can do in order to meet the objectives that we want as a business.
This is, I'm sure, a question a lot of people have is, how do you get to work with such large brands and licenses? I mean, that seems like nirvana. Of course, I think maybe some of them are saying, oh, how do we get to work with LootCrate?
We turn down, I mean, we have the luxury now
Yeah.
of turning down folks who we don't feel are a good fit thematically or for the service. And we're really humbled by, the attention that's brought. It's all about our community. I mean, we focused on creating an experience. When Chris sat down and said, I've got this idea, it's Comic-Con in a box. He felt a certain way, I felt a certain way. I had never met this person before. I was like, oh, that's cool. I know subscription boxes a little bit. I'm here in LA. There's a few of them here. But when he said Comic-Con, I've been going to Comic-Con for decades, the E3 and everything. I consider myself a more than an enthusiast with these things. And when I heard Comic-Con in a box, I heard things about that ritual, that experience, the exclusivity of the items, waiting in line to get your favorite item signed, getting in the car and driving down there to meet friends that maybe you had never met before or people that you only see once a year. My goal with the company as a co-founder was to instill that sense of community and welcomeness and experience very early on so that people felt that they were part of something more. And that ritual of getting the box and everybody getting it within a period of time and doing the unboxings together and sharing online and the mystery behind what was going to be in there and everything was meant to emulate that feeling or that emotion. And the brand partners that we talk to, when we're sitting in a boardroom and talking to Disney, when we're talking to Nintendo and big companies, they get it, they see it, and they see the reaction of our fans. They see people light up when they're holding something that's a replica from a game that we brought to life. And they understand that we're creating products and experiences to celebrate the amazing things that they've created as an organization and as artists. And the word just can continue to just get around and around, and we're fortunate enough now to be, when we talk about official boxes like WWE, we're the official subscription, Halo for Microsoft, Minecraft for the official Minecraft subscription box. And these are all very strong communities, and they appreciate how we're being additive to their overall story.
That's a wonderful point. So I'm a huge Tolkien fan. Have been, dressed up as Galadriel as a 9-year-old. And was at the launch of The Hobbit in New York, and was invited to that through Facebook. So I totally get that. So I guess my last question, because we're pretty much nearly out of time.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you one quick question. What one piece of advice, and I know you have so many gems of wisdom, so where do we stop it? What one piece of advice would you give to the audience about being true to your vision? Knowing not when to deviate, but about being true to your vision. How do you know that in your heart and your head?
Just to optimize around the end customer experience.
Yeah, about the customer experience.
Always with any decision that you need to make, unless you're right against the wall and you're just I can't pay the bills next month. I won't have a business unless I do this. And it's then we might is just continue to invest in creating a community and an experience around your subscription box that can live beyond the items that are there. Listen. Have that open dialogue and conversation, and always ask yourself establish those brand values early on. It's kind of silly. I've been part of really big companies, like enterprises, and you always be there's the on the wall. It's there's the values and everything, and we thought about them a lot and did a lot of research with our insights team. But we really feel strongly about them now. I carry them with me sometimes. I look at them and try and make sure that is this really something that celebrates being a fan? Is this something that shows that the people that our members can trust us and everything? And I think so I've kind of rambled here, I apologize.
No, this has been great.
It's just to come up with what your brand values are early on.
And you kept it to 4.
Yeah.
Which is restraint, because a lot of people 5, 7, 9. 4, I can even remember them.
And have examples too. That was one thing that we did, I don't know if I have them on me. But one of the things that we did when we distributed them out to the company was to put examples on the back of them as well, so that people can kind of understand what they are.
Okay.
So just one example.
Okay.
So we're fans first. So one example is looters witness us enthusiastically and knowledgeably engaging with fan communities at events on social media, as well as our own channels and anywhere else online. So being visible in those fan communities and not having to be, well, because we can market to them there, or
Right.
because, it'll build our brand,
But be
because we want to be
specific.
hearing, we want to hear what fans want and what they're interested in. So like having examples of those values that you can then kind of rally behind and look for examples for, I think,
Okay.
has been really beneficial as we onboard new people.
So Matthew, a tree, and you actually are carrying them, and I can tell they're a little ragged around the edges, which means they're well loved. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing. Fans first always, and Matthew, I'm a fan of yours, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.